What's up, everyone? This is Mike
And Joe.
from Deep Wood Force of Will.
Yes.
So today we're coming at you again with our ruler guide. This is episode 2, and we will be going over the second set from Alice Cluster, the Twilight Wanderer.
And most of the rulers on the screen you will not be seeing, except for one of them, but it's a cool picture, so let's get started.
Yep. So to start off on a high note, we're gonna go. No.
Doesn't start on a high note, doesn't it?
It's Alice, Girl of the Lake, also Alice Fairy Queen.
And she had to come first because
Light
we'll start
ruler.
low.
Yep. Well, it's always a light ruler first.
Fair enough.
So,
Alright, so this
let's
card
look at
does
the front
not
side.
start
Yeah.
First off, it's a judgment of 8. Cringe. And it says you may pay 1 less to play this ability for each fairy you control. I mean, okay.
Fairies are 1 costs, so it's like you judgmenting for 8 later.
Yeah, you're still judgmenting for 8 though.
Yeah,
Overall, which is
at a minimum. Yeah,
that's so cringy.
it's so bad. Like she's
And that's
cool.
just the beginning.
Like she's got cool implications, but at the same time it's like we'll go over what makes her a little bit weaker in a later time. To go on to her other side, she's a 9/9 for 8 mana. What?
Yeah, that's some pretty bad stats, but just a cool effect there.
Yeah, she comes with flying, and when she enters your field, you recover all fairies you control. That's pretty cool because if you attack with all your fairies, or play their tap effects, you can just put them all back up, do it all over again.
Nice, it's like you get 2 attacks that turn.
Wow. And then that God's Art for 2 light. J resonators you control gain +2/+2. That's okay. Search your main deck for a card named Excalibur, the Spirit God's Sword, and put it into your field, then shuffle your deck. That's, you get a card out of it.
You're paying 2 to give everything +2/+2,
Permanently. That's an emblem.
and then drawing and playing a free card.
Seems like it would be pretty good until we go to what that card actually does. So,
Well, there's Excalibur, the Spirit God Sword. Oh, that's a 2 mana regalia. Wow.
it's also not very good. Excalibur, the Spirit God Sword says your J ruler gains +1/+1 for each resonator you control. Again, you're probably judgmenting with a lot of stuff on the board, so it'll probably be buffing you pretty well.
Yeah.
Yep, you can tap it to produce any color to spend on fairy resonators. That's a little weak, just because your Memoria does that anyway.
And other rulers that get regalia for their God's Arts get ones that don't have to pay for just fairies.
Yep.
And then the fairies in general are just pretty weak as cards.
Yep, we have Light Sprite here as an example. It's one of the weaker ones, but it's pretty generic enough to where it's just kind of there.
If you want one of the more powerful ones, you have Flame Sprite, because that has swiftness and flying, which is always good, and it pings things.
Yep. So, but a common theme of the fairies is the fact that they have 200 attack and 300 defense. They are really frail.
Especially to the card all the way on the right, Flame King Shout.
That card deals 400 to every resonator your opponent controls. Guess what's dying to Flame King Shout?
Your fairies.
All your
Unless
fairies.
you have Vivian.
Right.
But Vivian's another story, and if you have Vivian, you could probably already be winning anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, if you already have a huge board of fairies, there's no reason to flip because you're already winning and you don't need to like really take the risks involved in that. You're just kind of contrary to how fairies want to play, I think.
I feel like if they wanted to make a ruler for fairies, they should have done something that would be like recover your hand because you dump your hand into your board to try and judgment. But it just doesn't work out that way, and then you just wind up over-committing to the board and getting blown out by simple AoE.
It's very unfortunate, and your Spirit God Sword is just a very weak regalia, especially compared to one we'll see later.
Yep. So overall, it's not much of a good grade we can give this ruler.
Yep, so we ended up giving her the D. I'm sorry, we gave her a D.
For Deep Wood. No.
Yeah, no. No. So, overall, the fairies are a very good archetype just with themselves, but Alice as a ruler is just not good enough to go with them.
she's made very specifically for the fairy archetype, but she doesn't fit the role correctly, so other rulers that just do generic things better wind up being better rulers for it.
Yep, so if you see a fairy deck, you probably won't see Alice with it. You can try her, but don't expect any good results out of her.
If you do play her, I'd probably say play fairies. I don't know what else you would play, so...
Yeah, play her with the shadows. No. Alright, on to our next card though, now that we're done bagging on Fairy Alice. We've got Sylvia Gil Palar, also with the same name on her other side.
And she's a cool ruler.
Yeah, Sylvia's a really cool ruler.
Starting out, you got some good art.
Mm-hmm.
From there, you get a pretty expensive judgment for 4, using a red and a green. But she also has on her ruler side that fire magic stones you control produce grass, wind, whatever you want to call it. Grass.
Yeah, so overall she comes with her own mana fix. It's an expensive judgment, but a lot of the time it means that you can play out your big plays in the early and sort of into the mid-game, and then later in the mid-game you can just flip her over and try to swing for game, because her other side is 1,000,000 that comes with flying and swiftness, so that's pretty solid.
That's a good bang for your buck.
Absolutely. And then when Sylvia enters your field, she deals 1,000 damage to target J/Resonator. That can hit J rulers, it hits Resonators, it's a lot of damage coming in.
And if you thought that was good, whenever a J Resonator that was dealt damage by this card this turn is destroyed, you may recover up to 3 target magic stones you control.
That's either by that effect or by killing it with her attack. So you can potentially, on the turn she summons, recover up to 6 magic stones.
And then your opponent's like, wow, you judgmented for like -2. And then they lose.
Yep. So Sylvia has a lot of really cool implications with her involving that. But one big thing to note is that she does lose the fire magic stones you control produce grass on her other side.
Wind.
Thank you.
Now I got you saying it.
Why did you do that? So you have to remember that when you flip her, you might lose some of the other cards in your hand that you were planning to play with her.
Yeah, and one of the weird things about her is that her judgment's on 4, which kinda goes against how you want to curve out as a fire deck, because you usually want to curve out to like 3.
Yep.
Because the top of your curve is usually, what, Priscia Pursuant to Flames?
Or Athena, yeah.
Yeah, so both of those are both 3 drops. You don't really have a good 4 drop to play on the turn that you need to call for your 4th stone, so it makes it a little awkward, but you can still just play...
Yeah, which is why some people like to do like mid-range ramp builds, which have worked in the past.
Yeah, so you can like skip over that awkward turn that she winds up getting and try and judgment a little earlier. Yeah,
so she's really cool in that regard, and I think she's she's a very balanced ruler by design.
And yeah, balance is a good way to put it, but she does have her good quirks, and she is efficient in the deck that she's meant to be played in.
And she's just big. She's like her drop will probably change the tide of the game.
Yeah, putting her on the board is really efficient in terms of will cost, and then you get a lot of damage, and there's also combos that you can do with her, which would be the Volga OTK, I believe.
Yeah, but that's for another video.
Yeah, just bring things up.
Yep. So, going off to the other stuff, this is basically what you're going to see with Sylvia, because, again, she can produce red and green, so red and green cards that have really worked well together are Lancelot and Rapid Growth.
It's a good combo. It basically gives you like a mini Sylvia for 3 will.
Yep.
You get the 700 damage ping and 1,000.
It's pretty good. And then over on the side there we got Priscia Pursuant of Exploding Flame, one of the probably most tightly packed resonators you'll ever see.
I say it's the best 3-drop in the game. That's how I usually say it.
Yeah, she really is. She comes with all the keyword abilities. You get extra damage off of her. It's very hard to clear her without like just damaging spells.
One of my friends that was looking at this card actually said that it has like the leper gnome effect if you played Hearthstone, where it's like you play it and you're guaranteed damage with it, but anytime it gets to attack and hit the face, it just means so much more in terms of like your kill clock for an aggro deck.
Yeah, definitely. And also you can sack it off to Levitine if you're playing in New Frontiers to just automatically guarantee the damage dealt. She's really good burst potential.
play it, you know, attack, make them declare a block that would kill it, and you could like that wouldn't kill it, and then you sack it so you can get the damage anyway, and they lose a blocker.
Also,
Pretty cool.
Also, if Sylvia J activates when your opponent has nothing on the field, if you already attack with Priscia that turn, you can hit your Priscia with Sylvia's 1000 damage. Your opponent will take 500, and you'll recover 3 stones.
Yeah, turns out that's pretty good, especially since you paid 3 stones for the Priscia already, so it works out.
So you can play another Priscia. Hey!
Yeah.
So overall, again, all these cards just work really well into the Sylvia deck because of the fact that she naturally gives you red and green, so all these cards just, you can always play them, you're never going to get mana screwed on them. So Sylvia just has a lot of really solid aggro capabilities, a lot of solid mid-range capabilities. So overall, we gave her an A-. Very good ruler, solid on most cases. We've seen a lot of Sylvia's topping lately with aggro decks.
Yeah, it's just that little bit of awkwardness that she has inherently with her judgment cost being a little bit off of what aggro's curve is what gives her that minus as opposed to like an A+.
Yep, but she comes with a lot of good stuff.
Yep, so you definitely are picking a good ruler when you pick her.
If you haven't already tried Sylvia out, we definitely recommend giving the deck a whirl. Most of the decks are pretty cheap that come with her.
Yeah, but a lot of them are commons or uncommon. Not really anything rare or super rare.
Besides Priscia.
Yeah, that's the obvious one, but I think that's the only one.
Yep, so definitely give it a try.
Yep.
Moving on, we've got Valentina, Plotting Lord of the Seas, and Overlord of the Seven Seas, Valentina. Now, this ruler...
Haha, this is one of my favorites to talk about since I've been playing with her most recently. And so have you.
I've been testing her a little bit more. So, Joe, why don't you talk about her a little bit?
Alright, so first off, her judgment is 3 with 1 water. It's cheap, especially when we get to see how much she brings to the table on her judgment. And she has one of the best ruler effects in the game, which is you spend 2 will, including 1 water, to search your main deck for a regalia, reveal it, and put it into your hand. Since most regalia are free, especially the ones that you're going to be playing with Valentina, it's basically like draw and play a card. So it turns out to be pretty good. And as I said before in our first episode with Machina, having search effects on your ruler side is really, really strong, because it means no matter what, during any time you can toolbox your deck for whatever regalia you need. Let's say you're playing against an aggro J ruler, you can search out Death Scythe. You ran out of resources, you could just search out your Horn of the Sacred Beast and reset your deck. Cool stuff all around.
Really good stuff, yep. If you need swiftness, you search for Levitine.
Yep, if you want to get draws off the damage you're going to be dealing with your J-Ruler side, you search out Gleipnir.
A lot of really good applications.
And the fun doesn't stop there, because on the J-Ruler side...
The flip side is the best part.
Yeah, so go for that, Mike.
Alright, so when Valentina enters the field, you may reveal any number of 7 Kings J-Rulers with different names you own from outside the game and keep them revealed until end of game. Outside the game doesn't mean you just pull out your binder, though, and just show your opponent a bunch of 7 Kings. You actually have to take up 7 spots in your side deck for those rulers.
Man, if I could just keep them out on the side, that'd be so much better.
So, Valentina, after you do that, gains +1/+1, +100/+100 for each card revealed, gains all of those cards' names and their God's Art abilities. That ending part there is one of the reasons that she's such a good ruler.
Yeah, so you get 7 God's Arts, a 14/14, all in a 3-wheel package.
Damn, son.
and you're like, all right, that's pretty good, but why would this card be so broken? So you get all their names, which means that you trigger all the regalia as extra effects, because all the regalia say something along the lines of, if your ruler is one of the 7 kings, gain this extra effect.
So some of those include Death Scythe being able to, making you able to steal resonators from your opponent when you kill them. Also having the reducing cost of the God's Arts, which is insane, because you can toolbox your God's Arts for like 4 less mana than they actually are. Combining Levitine, Death Scythe, Excalibur the God Sword if you want to. You also gain Natural Imperishable instead of having to sacrifice the regalia to give yourself Imperishable. You come with a lot of really solid buffs from those regalia.
Yeah, just man, just so many good stats, and also most of them just like buff your J ruler anyway. So
Exactly.
you're already gigantic. 14/14 gets into like the 2000s range, which is half your opponent's life for one swing.
Yep.
And
With searchable
Valentina
swiftness.
yeah, and Valentina with all those options is able to clear blockers without even trying.
Yep.
So
going over here, we'll look at all the J rulers that you can copy, because if you look at that wheel, you have 7 God's Arts that you can use, some of which are game changers.
and some of which aren't that great, but I'll go over the game changers. Mike, you can talk about the less popular ones if you want.
Alright, fine.
So first off, going from around the circle, starting at top left, we have Melgus. Melgus's God Art is you can destroy a resonator and then gain attack equal to the resonator you destroyed. So that's pretty good. You wind up getting rid of the blocker and then like gaining extra damage out of it to push your face. Valentina's lets you steal that resonator instead, and you don't gain attack, but you get an extra resonator, so that's always good. Rizard rips apart both players' hands and fields, which means you can push for game and, you know, just end the board because you have a gigantic thing on board while your opponent doesn't.
And you've just reduced all your opponent's resources down to nothing.
And last, but I guess Priscia is kind of like the mid-ground for like good God's Arts. And Priscia lets you do like the Huang Long effect where you just drop all the Sacred Beasts into the field.
Simultaneously, so they all get their effects all at the same time.
Yep, but we talked about that in the Priscia video,
yep.
So
exactly.
You know what we mean.
And then the somewhat lackluster ones are Arla up in the top right. Arla, for every time you attack that turn, you can deal 500 damage to a resonator, and that keeps stacking up.
I think it's 400, but yeah.
Is it 400? It's something along those lines, but
yeah.
Again, the fact that I don't remember is one of the reasons why it doesn't matter that much. Because you're never going to have a really big board with her, because she is your board.
Mm-hmm.
Faria, again, kind of the same principle. Faria says recover all resonators you control. You're not going to hold that many resonators, because Valentina, again, is your board presence. And then Machina, you can pay 3 to make all resonators you control with
no attributes.
No attribute, which is going to be 0, and also 0 in the main deck. Unless you're playing Maribel for 3, because you gain the name of Machina.
Yeah, which is pretty good.
Yeah, so those 3 you'll never see played, really. You might see either Arla or Faria if you back them into a corner, and it happens to be a good play at the time, but most of the time it's just going to be the other ones.
Sometimes you get surprise lethaled by Faria. That's the only one I would comment on. The other one's not really.
Yeah, because Faria plus Priscia's God's Arts are kind of cool, because you can get all your Sacred Beasts out, swing with them, and then recover them all.
Mm-hmm. You also have to be careful with the discounts on Priscia's God's Art, because if you discount it, you won't be able to pay with Rainbow Mana in order to get all the Sacred Beasts out.
No, you don't have to do that.
Oh yeah, you get to declare how much you're paying and then decrease it. That's right.
Exactly.
I forgot it's not Huang Long exactly where you have to pay with actual Rainbow Mana.
Yeah, we know which one of us has played the Green Valentina and which one hasn't.
Yeah, I started after Green Valentina stopped being a thing.
But you played Stealth Valentina, so, you know.
Yeah, so I played with Faria's Guard Art more.
Yep. So again, there are a lot of, and also, as we're talking about right now, there are a lot of different variations of the Valentina decks. When you see Valentina, you don't know whether it's going to be control-y, whether it's going to be aggro, whether it's going to be like a mid-range or a stealth combo deck. There's a lot of surprise room with her.
And you also have to be careful as the Valentina player, because there's a lot of side deck options that can really wreck your deck, including Black Moonbeam and Heavenly Gust.
And Death Scythe from time to time.
Yep, Death Scythe's always a big one.
So, again, there are a couple of limiting factors, but normally they're reserved for the side deck, and with that being said, we of course had to give Valentina an A+, because, oh god, there's so much good with her.
That snap.
Yeah, that snap. One last thing we want to mention is that with the change to Astral Rulers being taken out of the game, if Valentina ever dies and flips back to her ruler side, she retains the God's Arts of all those J Rulers still.
And their names.
And their names, yeah. So
the bows get 4 counters, and you're sad, and she can still just God's Art away all your stuff.
Yep. So Valentina really never dies.
flavorful.
Alright, so again, A+ for Valentina, and going on to
Man, I wonder how many people thought we would skip this one. Anyway.
welcome to Reflect, Child of Potential, and Refrain, Child of Convergence, also known as RR.
R/R.
Yep. So, let's go over Reflect's abilities, shall we? Joe, do you want to do the front or the back side?
I'll start with the front. Why not? Alright, so we start with Judgment. There is no cost. Man, you might have looked at all the other rules and been like, wow, that's a lot less than all the other ones.
It's like far less than all the other ones because it's nothing. But yeah.
Yeah, 100% less. And then it's got a 0 cost ability on the front which says choose one. But you can only do it once during your turn. Originally, when they made this card, it was once during either player's turn, which was even more ridiculous.
So we're pretty happy they errated it, but it was still really strong.
And first and foremost, it's target resonator gains +2/+2 until end of turn. Put a magic counter on this card, so free buff. Or you can draw a card, put a card from your hand on the bottom of your main deck, put a magic counter on this card. So sculpting, which is basically taking your hand and making it into a more usable form, which is the easiest way to like talk about it. And last but not least, which was really broken when Reflect first came out and we had like Elvish Priest in the game, is recover target resonator at the end of the turn, put a magic counter on this card. And you would, with that, you would like tap the Elvish Priest and do like some shenanigans with end phase, triggering and sequencing, and then be able to like play a Feat Sing on your second turn before you're untap, and then have 4 will open on your turn 2.
So a lot of brokenness came from all those abilities.
And so basically all you'll see from the 0 cost effect on the front side of him is that they all say put a magic counter on this card. That's very important for when Mike starts talking about the back side of this card.
So as you notice, there are 4 free effects on the front side of Reflect. Let's look at the 4 free effects on the back side of Reflect. So, first and foremost, you can pay 0 to put this card into your ruler area as a ruler. Play this ability only during your opponent's turn. You can just flip back for free. If you've already used your effect, you just go back. Big thing is that Refrain cannot battle, so it's basically just like a thing that hits the board and then goes back and then hits the board and just does abilities. It's basically, if you want to think of it this way, it's like an addition being put onto the field.
But even stronger because there's addition hate in the game. There wasn't very much J-Ruler hate when this card first came out.
Absolutely.
Especially J-Ruler hate that hit cards that couldn't battle.
The other one was Blazer, but then you could just, you know, phase out of Blazer's range.
Yep. And let's say you try to flip and then your opponent tried to kill your J-Ruler. Guess what? You can just flip again on the chase.
Yeah.
You could actually chase flipping back to flipping back and add up that chase counter for whatever reason you wanted to, but...
Exactly. So, that was pretty busted, and then seeing those magic counters on the other side, after you've amassed enough of them, you get 3 other free effects. They're all really good. So the first one is you remove 2 magic counters from this card, return target resonator to its owner's hand. If anybody plays something big like an Arthur Pendragon, King of the Round Table, just put it back in their hand, no big deal.
Yep. Just make that card unplayable, why don't you?
Yeah, it was for a little while. Going on to the second effect, you remove X magic counters from this card. That means any number of magic counters. To cancel target normal spell your opponent controls with total cost X. You got to cancel stuff for free.
So you spent all your free time amassing counters, and then you used your free effect to then start canceling their stuff for free.
And then, the best part that made Refrain one of the competitive, insane competitive points of the game, is that you remove 4 magic counters to search your deck for any card and put it into your hand.
So you don't even have to show them what it is, you just go, alright, I'm just taking off 4 counters, let me look at my deck, pull this out, alright, now it's in my hand.
Yep.
And then you kind of like looked at yourself and you were like, man, getting wrecked.
Yep, so obviously Reflect and Refrain are just insane cards. They're just deck modifiers. They're not like interactive rulers as much as they were meant to be, I would say.
I don't really know what they were going for with it. It was like they put a bunch of free stuff on it, and then because of when it was put out, there was no way to kill it, so it was just like this huge boost to consistency to a deck at the cost of not having a J-Ruler, which didn't matter because cards are strong enough to win games on their own.
Exactly, like J-Ruler strategies aren't just game winners on their own.
Well, they are, but it's like you would gladly sacrifice a J-Ruler strategy for
consistency.
Yeah.
That's a big thing about this card. This card was made every deck consistent, and actually spawned a few decks from it, which we'll go over right here. So, the first one on the left we have is Riza First of the Dead, which is meant to symbolize the stealth deck that came about when Reflect was really big.
Yes. And you're probably thinking like, alright, how did this spawn the deck? Well, when people were looking at the cards, at first they were like, this seems a little inconsistent. How do I keep myself A, safe while playing this card, and B, how do I amass like the double Riza combo in order to win the game? And it turns out that sculpting every single turn gets you to your combo pieces pretty quickly.
And also drawing and searching, and there's a lot of...
And then if you overdrew too many Melders, you can put them back, or if you drew too many Rizas, you put them back.
Yep. It's just like nothing was ever dead.
Which is
ironic, because they're all zombies, I know. Yeah. So, obviously Stealth came about from that, and Stealth has still been a really, really potent decked archetype in this current game. Just because if you do happen to draw the double Riza, you still have that insane opening.
Yeah, and a deck like Valentina winds up accepting the Stealth engine for that because she has consistency on her front side. A lot less so than Reflects, but she has a strategy that can work if the Stealth combo doesn't work out.
Exactly. Then moving on, we've got Huang Long. We've seen this guy come up a few times, but Reflect was the card that pioneered this deck basically, because Huang Long needs you to have your 4 Sacred Beasts in the deck in order to bring them out for his ability. Guess what Reflect does?
He puts things from your hand back in your deck.
And it puts them on the bottom of your deck too, so you know that you won't redraw them.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So that spawned that. And then you're wondering, what's Necromancy of the Undead Lord doing over there? And
then you forgot about the other effect of Reflect, which is you can give +2/+2 to something.
Which includes Lancelot. So basically having double +2/+2 effects for free means that Lancelot will hit 1,000 attack and trigger his abilities by turn 2 at the earliest.
Yeah, you play the Gwyn turn 1, you activate it, sack off the Gwyn, draw 2, discard the Necromancy, play a thing, play a Lancelot, and then you kill their 2-drop for free because it probably doesn't have 800 defense.
And you swing for 700. Swing for 1,000. That's what I meant to say.
And then they're at 3/4 of their health, and they're just looking at you like, come on, man. Thought we were playing a game.
And don't forget, you're still amassing magic counters at this point.
And you keep all those magic counters, and that's where the Change the World comes in.
Change the World Orb of Illusion was one of the big things that made Reflect way more broken than it should have been. Because it's a 0-cost Regalia, like it of course had to be. You tap it to put a magic counter on your J-Ruler, so you can just amass counters twice as fast.
Yeah.
You can tap it to remove a magic counter from your J-Ruler. If your J-Ruler has no attack and defense, which it won't because it's Reflect, you recover it. So you can use the tap effects again, if you've amassed enough. And then if that wasn't enough, you can also pay green, tap it, remove 2 magic counters from your J-Ruler, and draw a card. So you can draw on top of your draws, on top of your consistency and searching, and...
So you turn your magic counters into cards, and then turn your cards into advantage, and then your advantage turns into damage, and then your opponent loses.
Right. So turn 1, Change the World, Orb of Illusion, or multiples, because you can play multiples, of course.
You could open 4 of them, and then your opponent just kind of like watches as you draw like 2 times per turn if you really wanted to.
Yeah, they just auto scoop. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, You hear us talking a lot of negativity around Reflect, and that's because Reflect was a big proponent in the drought that Force of Will went through at his prime, because, well, we're going to preface this by saying that Reflect was banned.
In Wanderer.
Yeah, and also New Frontiers.
Of course.
And as of September 9th, I believe it was, this rule went into effect. Reflect is no longer around. And with that, a lot of varieties come back to the game. Back when Reflect was around, about 70% of every AGP or ARG or any top tournament event would be Reflect Refrain.
Because how do you beat Reflect Refrain except by being Reflect Refrain?
Exactly.
And in that point in the game, it was basically pick your flavor of deck, and whatever flavor of deck you wanted, there is a Reflect Refrain for that.
Yep, just make it more consistent.
Yeah. It was like, why would you ever play Valentina when you could play... Well, the thing is, when you had... So any of the rulers that we put like in A+, were some of the rulers that could actually be a viable choice against Reflect, because they actually had something that Reflect couldn't do.
Take the word reliable with a grain of salt, though, because, again, they weren't at Reflect's power level, but they were very close, we would say.
Close and then you have your next slide.
And by close, we mean as close as they could be, because we gave... Well, first of all, we're going to go over the fact that there's a power curve to this game, right?
Yeah, so we've got, on the low end, we've got Fairy Alice, which we talked about. It's just like, that's pretty bad. It's not really a good ruler.
Nope. And then we see Valentina on the side, and it's like, oh, an A+ ruler. Yeah, of course she should be at the top of the power curve. Where does Reflect fit on all this? Pew! As you can see over there in the sea of Japan, we have our scale. And then we see up here in space, we got our boy Reflect, just looking down on all the other rulers.
Yeah.
So Reflect is the only ruler we have here with the S rank, and of course he is deserving of it because he's the only one that was good enough to get banned.
And he'll hopefully be the only one that's ever good enough to get banned.
Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
There's really not much else to say about him. He was just kind of a blight on the game for a while. A lot of competitive players really liked him because there's an air of strategy to which effects to do when, and how to amass your counters properly, what to sculpt for, what to put back. It was fun for the competitive scene from time to time because people really enjoyed the multi-level thinking, but it really alienated a lot of casual and not very competitive players from the game, and it was not really a fun time to be playing in tournaments.
Yeah, I imagine it. I remember a couple times where we were like, all right, what deck should we bring to locals? And it was just like, all right, do we want to win or do we want to, have fun? And it was like, okay, winning, we'd pick Reflect and play whatever deck we wanted to play. And if we didn't really care about winning and we just wanted to go and have fun, we would just pick a regular ruler.
And that just wasn't healthy for the game, because one ruler shouldn't be so far above everything else. It's a lot of people compare Reflect to Jace the Mind Sculptor from Magic the Gathering.
Another card that was banned in a game that doesn't ban very many cards.
Yep. Because just so many effects built into something that just doesn't bode well for the game. Reflect just went against everything that Force Will was about, where it was pay for stuff and use your resources properly. Reflect was just a massive resource generator that ended in huge late game pushes.
If you want an easy way to compare it, Force of Will was to Magic Force of Will was to Magic in that it was basically we took the game and made it a little bit more consistent, where we took the lands out of the deck, and then Reflect kind of tried to push the game towards more like Yu-Gi-Oh, where everything's free and then you just kind of go ham every single turn with all your free effects.
And that's just not something that's fair or enjoyable.
When everyone else is playing Magic and you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not a fair game.
Exactly.
And that's how the game got stale.
It got stale fast. But we're on an up tilt. We're feeling good now. Reflect's gone. Hopefully we'll stay gone forever.
But it's important to talk about him. But let's move on.
Absolutely. Yep. So, on a higher note, we've got Girl in Twilight Garb, also known as Dark Alice, Maiden of Slaughter. This is one of the most unique rulers we have in the game.
I like this ruler a lot.
I like her a lot too.
I plan on using her in the near future, so expect a deck list for that. But anyway, it's a Judgment of 0, but it's very unique in its way of being 0 because it's play this ability only if you remove 3 or more cards from the game with this card's ability. And you're like, what do you mean? And it says below it, pay dark, remove target card in your opponent's graveyard from the game.
That's a really unique effect because there are not many cards in the game that remove stuff from the grave.
Yeah, so you can ruin opponent's strategies with that as long as they're playing like a graveyard-based strategy. But with the way that you're trying to play Alice is to try and get to that judgment earlier, especially the God's Art, which we'll talk about in a second. And
yep.
You know,
quick note to make on that. Just like every other ruler's ability, if it's a mana ability, like if it uses mana to do it and doesn't say to tap her, you can use that any number of times per turn and during either player's turn.
So technically, as long as your opponent has the cards in your opponent's graveyard, you could just pay the 3 dark, banish 3 cards, and then judgment immediately. So it's a 3-cost judgment, but you could space it out over a couple turns. You could do it all at once. You have options in regards to that, and once it's done, every single time you want to go and judgment her, it's free.
Yep. So imperishable, very good with her.
Yes.
So moving on to the other side, we see
Target attack.
Maiden Slaughter, 900 with target attack. That is not too shabby for 0 mana. Spread out over a few turns, of course.
Even for 3 mana, that's still pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, like, Fairy Alice is a 9/9 for 8 mana. Jeez. So, going in past target attack, when she enters your field, you choose a number, any number you want, and then you destroy all resonators with total cost equal to the chosen number.
Turns out it's a pretty good clearing ability when it just comes into the board.
Yep, it's a non-targeting destruction ability that you can cater to what you need to face. Quick reminder that it is all resonators though, so if you have any resonators of that cost, they will die.
Which is fine, because you're probably not playing that many resonators in the Dark Gauss build, but we'll talk about builds later.
And then the God's Art, Walpurgis Knight. For 2 black mana, you get J resonators your opponent controls gain -2/-2. That is a permanent effect that stays on the board even if she dies.
We call that an emblem.
Yep.
For easy access.
Yep. So aggro decks eat your heart out. Your resonators are hitting like wet noodles. And then you search your main deck for a card named Schrödinger, the Fallen Black Cat, and put it into your field. So again, that putting a Regalia from your deck into the field ability that we saw with Fairy Alice, they're kind of like the opposites of each other, except Dark Alice is like 8 billion times better.
So we have them on opposite ends of the spectrum, where Fairy Alice is extremely expensive for judgment, Dark Alice is not that expensive. Dark Alice has a really good enter where she slaughters things.
Hey.
By word. And then she actually gets a really good judgment where she puts that emblem on your opponent's board, which keeps them like controlled. And then she gets value out of it because she draws and plays a 3 mana Regalia for 2.
Which is right here at the middle. As we can see, that's Schrödinger, the Fallen Black Cat. Make sure you get the umlaut. More effects on Schrödinger is the fact that Schrödinger gets more effects as you have more cards in your opponent's removed area. You can do that by your own abilities or by your opponent's cards' abilities, either or.
It doesn't matter how they get there, as opposed to Alice's judgment.
Right. So as long as there are 5 or more cards in your opponent's removed area, your J-Ruler gains +5/+5. It's pretty good, because if you judgment and then 2 more cards get removed, your Alice becomes a 14/14.
Pretty strong.
Stats, yeah. And then as long as there are 10 or more cards in your opponent's removed area, your J-Ruler gains swiftness and target attack. These 2 matter a little less for Alice just because the target attack is already built into her, and swiftness you can get from Levantine for 0 cost.
Yeah, but you don't always play Levantine with Dark Alice, so it's acceptable.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing ever. And if you're not playing if you're playing a deck and you just don't have a Levantine, put a Schrödinger. Don't put Schrödinger in that deck. And then you can tap this card, produce any will. You don't have to use this will to play fairies, so this card is infinitely better the Excalibur, the Spirit God's Sword.
Yep.
And then you can banish this card, and same effect. Your J ruler gains imperishable until end of turn.
And so when you look at Schrodinger, you're like, I probably wouldn't pay 3 will for that, which is fair. But I would, yeah, I'd definitely pay 2 will for it though.
Yeah, 2 Dark Will with a God's Eye.
Yeah, which is, you know, good.
And we've got a couple of examples of cards here that you're actually going to be using Dark Alice against. The first, again, we see Necromancy of the Undead Lord. If your opponent goes to chase this card when they play a Resonator, they'll activate the effect in the grave to attach it to something. The moment they do that, you pay 1 will, remove it from the grave, the card fizzles.
Well, it's just banished, so it can't really add itself from the graveyard.
Yep, it's no longer a target for itself.
Yep, so you really ruin that strategy since people try to, like, you know, trigger Lancelot effects using Necromancy for free. So you just say no to that, and then you wind up God's Arting and decreasing the attack of Lancelot even more.
Yep. And then speaking of decreasing attack and defense, we see Windspread over there as a 200-200. Any card with 200 or less defense immediately dies to Alice's God's Art and becomes a dead draw for the rest of the game. It's pretty good.
It was a lot better when Machina was really good in the game, and against Necromancy it's pretty good.
Against Featsing it's very good.
And when you say that, you wind up looking at that we're talking about matchups a lot, and you'd be like, so why is it all matchup related? Because it really is just matchup related for Dark Alice. There are matchups where she has no effect at all for the most part.
And there's some matchups where she is a game winner. I've noticed that a lot. Because when I brought Mikage to New York States, I ended up siding in Dark Alice a lot against the really poor matchups, and she made a world of difference.
Yeah, and with the Dark Alice build I plan on doing, since I know that she can't win all of her matchups because she just doesn't do enough by herself, I went up like siding it to Gil as a way to, you know, sort out those issues, but we'll see Gil at some other point.
Exactly. So, again, a very matchup related. Most of the time you see Dark Alice, she is sided, but she is one of the most frequently sided rulers, especially in dark decks. So, with that factor being said, we decided to give her an A-, because obviously she's situational, but when she comes in those situations, she is astoundingly powerful. Yep,
and she is probably one of the best rulers in the game if you could choose your matchups.
Exactly.
So with that regard, she gets the A-. If she was a little bit more well-rounded to fit
a little
against
less situational,
she'd probably get her way up to A+ and be with Valentina, but A- isn't bad.
Yeah, definitely not a bad spot, and obviously keep a lookout for her. She's one of the most, I think she's one of the most technically skill-based rulers we have, just because of how you have to micromanage your resources.
And your opponent's resources.
And your opponent's resources, that's very important. She's a very multi-leveled ruler, so she bids you hello and goodbye. Thank you all for watching. Man, we really like Dark Alice here.
Yeah, she winds up being a little cutie at the end.
Yeah, especially Schrodinger, even though Schrodinger eats people and turns them into shadows.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of lore for you. We recommend watching reading the manga to see all the Seven Kings rulers get eaten and transformed.
Yep, all the mangoes. Read them.
Yep. So
it doesn't take very long, so
it really doesn't.
Why not?
So again, thank you all for watching this. Please stay tuned for our next video. We're going to be going over the Moonlit Savior. Got some really some really unique rulers coming out of that.
Yep. And hopefully it's going to happen pretty soon. So stay tuned.
Yep. This has been Mike.
And Joe.
From Deepwood, Force of Will.
Bye-bye.